Okay, I am finally trying to actually get something finished on this UDF and make it useful and realistic. The UDF is this tool I have, or this thing I call the parallel model. This is to resolve circular references in another kind of manner. I'm going to make a few videos. Maybe nobody will watch them, and that's just fine. I just have to get them off my head because I've been wasting so much time on all of this. The first thing I'm going to do is create a little model. So uh, a couple of people have told me, I actually go through your stupid little exercises, and I actually work through them. So I'm going to leave this file as an exercise file, and I've got a few inputs. But this only has one single debt issue. This example, and the real thing that I'm going to do finally is to use both a copy and paste and the UDF, show you how to reconcile it, and show you that you can do it fairly easily because Hetty told me, no, 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 you got to, you absolutely, when you're going to use the UDF, you've got to prove that it gives you the same results as copy paste. Okay, I totally agree with that. It's really helpful. So I'm going to do that. And the first thing I'm going to do is just make the model. Second video is to, oh shoot, is to, oh God, is to make the UD, add the UDF. Then I'm going to put some more debt issues in. I'm going to put some export credit agency debt, some shareholder debt, and multiple different issues into the model. It can take 30 issues or more if you want. And make sure, and then add those to the UDF and show you that it still works. And then I'm going to add some VAT debt to the model and use the UDF with VAT debt. Now, this whole thing is not really interesting to me anymore because I think this is pretty easy. But this resolves all the circular references related to pre-commercial operation, pre-COD. If you want to resolve the issues related to post-COD, um, uh, then the sculpting business comes into play, and that has been driving me totally and completely crazy. But a lot of people have said, I just get the pre-COD, just get the IDC, the fees, the DSRA, the VAT, get all that stuff resolved. And that's the main thing that and then I'm going to fiddle with my sculpting anyway. I'm going to kind of force it and put some solvers or goal seeks, absurd things to do, and I'm going to do that myself. So this is the idea. I talked to somebody from Fast, I think, who suggested that. So what I'm going to do is work through this. Before we do this, let me make some points that I'm going to get emotional about, psychological, show my psychological problems about, and that's that. The point number one of a consistent timeline. Okay, it drives me crazy to have 5 different timelines. I'm sorry for all you people who've taken a course in chorality or something like that, but I'm really sorry about that. But make some consistent, simple timelines that cover everything. And we'll put 1 month for the construction period and 6 months for the post COD period. Now, because of the debt structure, of course. I shouldn't say of course, what an idiot. Now I'm going to make a little capex and put a little development expenditure, which doesn't matter. The model here starts, the UDF or the parallel model begins with financial close. So we're going to move our development costs to financial close. Then I'm going to make some assumptions about a silly little S-curve. Don't worry about these. I'll use a normal distribution because I forgot. I used to do the other one. Then we'll put some EBITDA and some EBITDA growth. And then we'll put some debt financing. Now, at first, I'll just fix the debt financing. This could be fixed from a sculpting, I suppose. It could be, it's given. This is what I hate about this exercise, frankly, because the interesting thing really is to come up with different debt sizings driven by P50, P90, DSCR, debt to capital are just given. But that's what I'm going to do. And then we're going to put some flexibility with either, this should be equity. And we could put 100% equity upfront funding or 0% equity upfront, and then the rest will be pro rata. So I'll put equity funding. Okay, so we could go either way. Okay, one minus this one. So right now it'll be 50% upfront, 50% pro rata. And then we're going to have an extremely different debt repayment, 10 year. Oof, I can say it properly. And then I'm going to put some interest rates without putting credit spreads, blah, blah, blah. But I am going to put some withholding tax, PRI, and PRG, political risk insurance. God, does that make things expensive? And insure the equity and the debt. Part of the sources and uses of funds. And you can make an argument that this should not be included in the sources and uses of funds because it's almost like getting a equity return and putting that in the cost, which I think is fine, but other people don't. The theory is more interesting than some of this other stuff. And then we'll put some fees and a DSRA. And then we'll work through the operations. After we work through the operations, work through some financing and put a summary of all the financing activities and put a little switch that allows us to either use the copy paste or UDF. In this video, I'm just going to stop with the copy paste. And then we're going to work through all of this other stuff. And it might take me, how long do you think it's going to take? It's probably going to, I would estimate half an hour, but it's going to take longer. It's probably going to take like a boring, hour-long, stupid old video. And I'm going to leave this like this. And now I'm going to save it as a exercise 1 completed. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do, it's all very kind of simple. I'm going to, let me finish let me do the most important things. Now, my latest, I always think this generic macro one day will be finished. And I don't think it will. I open generic macros. Now, my friend Jay from South Korea, he is amazing. He actually wrote the whole UDF himself. I gave him a little exercise on copy paste. He wrote it, and I'm doing this partly for him. And I wanted to show him, no, you can do it a lot easier. So, and he uses this generic macro a lot thing. But I'm going to Control-Alt-C again. And of course, I haven't even done my table of contents yet. And I think it it sometimes does this. I hate this. Okay, and I'm gonna make one more, and that should have been 8. Okay, so I just press Control-Alt-C. Please try it. Just try it once. If it doesn't work, give me a stupid little column. So then we have our inputs. Okay, and the first thing I'll use EDate. Don't put anything after the E, and then go up here and then press Shift Control 3. Nothing to do with generic macros, and EDate again, and go up to this one and take the life and multiply it by 12 because there are 12 months in most years. And then we have this, and now you can start with this. I'm going to go over to maybe column J. Let's put J in here. And let's put EIS, enter. Whoops, oh no! Oh, God. Let's put 150 periods in. And let's make the pre-COD flag. Let's see how many periods we have pre-COD. And let's put that in driver number 1 and put this in. And I've talked elsewhere that you can less than or equal to this, F4, of course, shift control, and then let's see, now this is why it's going to take me an hour. I'm going to do things like this, multiply it by 1, and then it doesn't color it properly, and then I'm going to put a sum here to make sure we really have the right numbers in. And then I'm going to put the start of the period and the end of the period, and we always start with the end, and the end period to start with is the financial close minus 1 date, which means the start of the period is the next period plus 1, and just get these dates easily. And you put and then of course I missed it. I didn't put the months in the period, and the months in the period are either 1 or 6. There are 2 drivers, and if it's pre-COD, then it's going to be 1. Otherwise, it's going to be 6. That's our, okay. And then we put equal E-date, and we go up to the start date and put how many months in the period we have. And then you have to put a -1, which I always forget. And then finally, oops, and then maybe, well, oh shoot, shift, control, right arrow, control, space bar, and make them all consistent. Don't, please, never, ever do this thing where you do it 1 by 1. And then the operating period will start at COD, and it will end at decommissioning. And this time, let's put an AND function and make sure, always start with the beginning date. Make sure this is greater than or equal to the start date, and it's go to this one again and make sure it's less than this one. And if you don't believe it really works, put a multiply by this by 1 and put a little sum here. That, please, I'm really, that means there are 80 periods and there were supposed to be 40 periods, and since it's a half year, it's all working very nicely. Maybe we should put a little thing here. And these, we're going to keep these in sight. And I'm even going to put this here. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to put this up here. This little kind of thing right at the top. And now we only have 7 periods, 7 things at the top. Control-Alt-C again. And I was afraid I was not making a video. Let's put 7, and this time, if you do this one, it's going to clean the conditional formatting. It said it's going to put it in J. It says the sum column should be in I. Let's see if that one really worked. And the sum column really should be in I, and it colored this for us. Okay, now we could color the sum column differently, which we will do in a minute. This is something that he talked about. Now I'm already on 13 minutes. I've already wasted so much of your time. So now I'm going to start with the operational part of the model. Okay, and the first thing, maybe I'll put a little switch in here for the S curve, and let's put let's put the driver just as the financial close, which you know, I used to just cheat on this, but we really shouldn't. You just put an equal, open the bracket, and this equals this thing, and multiply it by 1. Okay, so we have another little thing. Of course, we're going to change that later. And then I'm going to put the S-curve in. Now, the S-curve, I think I left some stuff out. I said, okay, let's go over here, and let's say that we're going to have a construction period of 36 months. So I'm going to put Alt-EIS, and I'm going to go to 37, perhaps. And then I'm going to say, here's the normal distribution, NORM. Of course, please, don't take this one very seriously. Why? NORM distribution. And then put the kind of period in, and then put the average, which is just I hope the 36 divided by 2, and then put some kind of standard deviation in, which what I did was, and then we put 0. And then what that does is it gives you a little normal curve. And I said, well, the standard deviation could be 0.4% of the average. The average is just the total construction period divided by 2. This is kind of all a little bit boring. And then what I should really do, so and then why don't we do this? Just put a little insert and use one of these little spark lines. Why don't you do that? Okay, and then we have a little bit in 37, which is bad. That's the kind what it would look like. And then if I change the standard deviation to 0.6, we kind of get a stretched out one. If it's 0.2, it's so that's just like modeling a little bit of an S curve. And I think I should have inserted a little line that says period, a switch. How about this? Flag. We call it whatever we want to call it. And then I'm just going to put the construction period here. Oh, that's kind of stupid. This is an input. I'm allowed to do it like this. Oh, shit. Yep, I am. Less than or equal to this. I'm going to leave it with the true false, and I'm going to multiply that by the true. Okay, and then we need to normalize it, and to unitize it, we take the sum here. I don't know, maybe we should have kept it different, and it only goes to 9/8, so we take this one divided by this F4, and then we make sure that the whole thing comes to 0. I'm pressing Shift Control R, and then I'm going to press Shift Control P, and now I should have done this one. Oh shit! Let's move this to here, okay? And this one I should have summed up here, and now if I put a sum over here, it's going to give me exactly 100%. Good. Enough of that. Sorry, I went through that quickly just because I don't know why I did that even. Okay, so now we can put our S curve in and just use the lookup function, which we'll use again and again and again. This time I'm just going to take the period, and this I'm going to take the whole line here. I just don't understand why people waste time on some of these Excel formulas. And you can say, oh, what happens if you've got some other stuff here? You know, but we can put a test there. The sum is, Hetty tells me to do that, and she's absolutely right. And then let's get the development expenditure. Let's put in driver 1. Let's get how much of our development cost we have, which would be summed from other things. And just take this one and multiply this by the Shift Control C, maybe. How's that? That puts a little dash there. And then that's just making your own shortcut key. And then let's put the total capex in. And I'm just getting this all ready so we can really do this analysis. But some people like apparently to, what in the heck? Just a minute. Oh, I can't do this. I'm sorry. And let's take the S curve and multiply by our construction, okay? And if we want to be consistent, why don't we put the sum here? And why don't we also use this as a way to explain the generic macros? Now, I'm proud of this. Is this artificial intelligence? AI. Yes, I found that it's in column I, just because I did a little if test and see how many sums there are. And down here, we can put a light line in here, and I think Hetty made it a gray thing or something like that. So then, I can't remember what color. Let's put a different color in for the sun. Oh, shoot, there's no good color. Oh, hell. Oh, this is going to mess it up. Oh no, and I've just wasted some time on this, and I know what I did. Oh God! No, and I'm going to leave this in too. No, I didn't press this on. I think there's a problem here. Okay, that's gone out of the video. Okay. Don't. Okay, now let's put the periodic inflation in for the EBIT, which we had up here was 2%. And to do that, you do 1 plus the annual rate, raise it to the power of the number of months in the period, divided by 12, right? It's 112 minus 1, shift control P. Yeah, why not? Do this one. Okay, and then of course when we get to our operation period, we're there, and then let's put an index here, and I'm not going to worry about this. This is a violation of everything. Multiply this times 1 plus the inflation rate multiplied by the flag, and you notice shift control 1 maybe, shift control C, shift control R. You notice that having those few little timing things in sight for me is such an enormous deal. And then let's put in the EBITDA. I hope this kind of works. And then let's shift control C, and let's take this EBITDA and multiply it by the inflation index, and also multiply it by the operation flag. I hope you see it's already important. And then we can take the free cash flow as the EBITDA minus the development expenditures minus the capex, and then we can get our IRR. I don't know where to put that. X IRR. And then I suggest you use the end date, not the begin date. Take this whole thing and then go to the end date here and shift control R, and I've got way too high. How embarrassing. Let's put 1,500 here. Whoops, not 100. Shift control C. It should be. It's still way too high. How about 1,000? That's still too high. How about 700? Okay, still too high. How about? I'm not saying it's. I know you guys love to make really high IRRs because that's what life's about. But all right, now this is debatable. You don't absolutely need these. You could just use the sum column to add all the development cost. But right now, I'm just going to go and get all of the development expenditure. Now, I guess this time I can't take the whole column. And I'm going to get all the construction expenditure. Now, I could obviously just summarize it, but I'm going to do it officially. And now we're going to get, these ones are going to come from downstairs. And that's, of course, where we're going to have the circular reference problem. And then let's put a sum of all of these in. Okay, and then we're going to start with the financing. And we're going to apply either the UDF method or the copy-paste method and put a little switch in here. And perhaps I'll even add a little switch. Why don't I put a circular method applied? How's that? God, this stupid Facebook thing. I haven't been on Facebook in 20 years, and these people who I have never seen before. Oh, Jesus, why does that come on? I can't figure out how to get whatever. Where am I? A circular reference method. And I'll put UDF is true. Now, of course, when you do this, you can put a little thing here, and it's always a pain because this thing where it says checkbox, you can't you have to do this blindly. Format control, and let's set this one to a different thing and set it back. Okay. I'm doing all this boring stuff just to show you where we'll be able to use either one of these. Okay. Excuse me, I have a little bit of runny nose. Okay, here we go, and we'll put that. Oh no, no! Oh, come on. Okay. Now let's go down and put the debt in. Now this one I kind of screwed up a little bit, but I'm gonna kind of start with the debt size. So we're gonna now work through all our debt assumptions here. And I'm going to take this one that includes all of the, which one should I use? Just a minute. Shoot. I'm going to, for now, I'm going to take this one and multiply it by 0.75. I'm sure I'm going to have to do this a little bit differently. Maybe not. And equity is of course, the total cost, of course, minus the debt. Now, why did I say of course? Okay, and that's what we're going to put in differently. Now, for the equity upfront percentage, I think probably I could have done this a little bit easier, but I'm just going to put 50% in for the equity upfront percent. So we're going to take the total equity and multiply that, the total equity multiplied by the 50%. Maybe I'll do it like that. And then that means the upfront equity that's not, and that's kind of stupid to put 50-50, isn't it, in a little example, because, you know, what happens? It doesn't kind of illustrate. So let's put 40% upfront and 60% pro rata. That means the equity pro rata is hang on. Oh, shit. I meant to put this in. I'll follow my own instructions, which weren't very good. I'll put this as a percentage, and then this is the 40% times the total equity, which means the pro rata is the difference. And then I can put the total amount of debt in here. And of course, everything would be so nice. And then that total pro rata is this one. And we can get the equity pro rata percentage and the debt pro rata percentage. And that will be helpful when we go through our funding analysis just below. Shift Control P. There are about 100 different ways to do this. And now we're going to go through period by period. We'll just go and get the development cost first. And this is, again, almost the same thing. All I did was copy the titles from the sources and uses, and of course all these are blank so far. And let's get the sum. Now when you do this, select the whole area and press Shift Control R. It's probably not going to go all the way. Is it going to go all the way or stop? Oh, it went all the way. Huh. I thought it might have stopped. And then you can press Shift Control right arrow a couple times and press Shift Control E if you would like a little underline. That's just a kind of a, what do you call that, a shortcut that you made yourself. And then let's get the upfront equity. So most of these things that we really need, and I'm just going to press F4 and just continue that. And then I'm going to say, well, how much equity have we already used? I've done this so many times, probably on videos, that it's really boring. And I know I'm sure this is like I'm sure this is repetitive to other things I'm making, and I can't, oh, damn. Okay, and then the remaining balance is this minus this. And then the opening balance is the closing balance in the last year. And the only interesting part of this is that the amount of equity issued is the minimum of either the amount we have left to finance or the total financing. and try to make this as transparent as you possibly can. I could have used an alt equal there, and then you select the whole things and press shift control. And I almost this is equity. I'm going to put equity financed, and I'm going to go ahead and put an underline on here because this is the real number we were looking for. So when you put I don't know if that sum would be silly. That sum would be silly. The only thing that would really be kind of good in this sum is this one. Okay, and that shows that we did it all right. You could even put your little checks here. And then the pro rata funding from the debt, from the total pro rata funding, rather, is the total we have minus the amount of equity we just put in. So we don't need anything from, we don't need equity, anything there. And then the funding starts there. And then we have some that's funded with equity. This is Hetty's method that she came up with, which is really good. And then we also have some funding from the debt. Okay. And then we just take this amount and we press the F4, and we take this amount and we press the F4, and then we have the total funding. And the total pro rata funding is, it better be, that's so unnecessary, I'm going to delete it. So our total debt funding is just the amount of debt pro rata funding, and the total equity funding is the total pro rata equity plus the upfront equity that we have up here. And why don't here, maybe we should put the total sources of funds. So we have a uses and sources of funds already, alt equal, and we're ready to go. Of course, we don't have the big deal, which is the circular reference. Now, the only reason I'm doing anything with repayment, by the way, I forgot to add a couple of things here, and I'm going to leave the other one out. But I think we have to put PRG, political risk guarantee. And and up here under the interest during construction, we have to put withholding taxes. I think it's got 2 H's. And when I did a spell check, that happened. Whoops. I'm not a good speller, that's for sure. PRI. Okay, and all of these things, I'm just pressing Control D, by the way. All of these things cause a circular reference. All of those things, and then I've got the sum. Okay, and that's the real problem. Okay, and I guess I should have extended this little underline thing, as if that matters to anything. And then, so now we're going to walk through the debt. Now, the reason I put a repayment flag in here, and when I put the repayment tenure up here, I just put a really simple repayment. The reason for that is I want to show you how to resolve the problems with circular reference problems with the DSRA account, and make sure our UDF has this DSRA account in here. And why is this not correct? And repayment end of debt repayment, and I'm just gonna put a date, and then we go upstairs to the commercial operation and multiply this by 12. Okay, and then we can then put our little debt repayment flag, and we could have put and it's going to start at the COD. We could have put a grace period in and start it a little bit later than the COD. That would have all been just fine. but I think it will be better for illustrating how the DSRA works to not put the grace period in. So we'll put an and as usual, and always go to the start date and make it greater than or equal to the first one, and go to the start date and make it less than, and press this one. Okay, and then we multiply that by 1. Okay, and we'll make our little coloring in just a little while. And then I can get a sum of all of these. Okay, and on my old kind of videos, I didn't use the sum enough, which was really, really bad. And then our repayment amount is the total amount of debt. Now, what we're going to do a little bit later is put different debt issues in. And then I'll take this debt amount and divide it by this one, and then we can put our F4 here and multiply it by the repayment flag, and we've got a really simple flat debt repayment, which means we can start to make our little debt balance, which has the opening balance. Now, this is another, I'm going to rave again. I'm going to show my abusive qualities again by talking about the fact that why in the heck would you keep the debt balance in 2 different pages, which everybody does because of these stupid rules that people make that are so hobgoblin of a petty mind. This wonderful saying by that American guy, foolish consistency, foolish following stupid little bureaucratic rules is the hobgoblin of a petty little mind. Sorry about that. That sounds really arrogant. But why would you not put the debt, the repayment, and the debt all together? Why would you have to go through this whole painful process of doing it twice? I just can't understand it. And now I'm getting all emotional, and I screwed up my thing. Oh, crap, see? Oh, God. It's not my fault. You know what it is. Oh, God, I can't do it. Okay, whatever. I can't press Shift Control C. Oh, my gosh. So that now we have the debt draws from above and the debt repayments here. And now we have a nice little simple debt balance. Of course, you might have a sweep and a capitalized interest and all sorts of complicating things, but this is the most fundamental way to kind of all do it. And then we have our debt balance, and our debt balance eventually pays, and we could put a little test in to make sure it goes down to 0, but I'm not going to do that. And then let's put the interest in, and this time I used a lookup function, and I said, let's look up. You always look up on one date, and I set this up, and these people, again, I'm complaining, who don't set up the inputs like this. For me, it's just such an idiotic thing. It's an arrogant little thing to do, to say, oh, I'm going to set the inputs in a way that makes it a pain to use, and I can't use the lookup. So I always would set them up like this, and then we put our periodic interest where we take this one divided by 12 multiplied by the periods in the year. And you notice again, I'm repeating myself, but all those things on the top whatever are unnecessary. And then we take this periodic rate and we multiply it by the opening balance. And then finally we start to get some circular reference issues, because I'll take this one and I'll multiply it by the flag. So this is the interest during construction, and I'll take this interest cost and multiply this interest cost by the operating switch. And we have the next one. And then the withholding tax is up here. I take and maybe I'll do this one a little bit slowly. The way the withholding tax works, it's clearly a interest, really, but you put it as a tax on itself. So you take this one, you multiply this by you divide this one by 1 minus itself, And when you do that, you press Shift Control P. That's the effective withholding tax rate. So you can take this one and F4 and multiply it by the I guess I should have pressed this withholding tax pre-COD, and everything really works in a model pre-COD and post-COD. And you know, I'm just realizing when you have I didn't really think about this before. When you have, I'm pressing Control D. When you have the DSRA, if you're theoretical about it, the DSRA should include the withholding tax, and I think I might have to adjust my stupid little UDF for this one. Okay. I'm going to do it without first, just because, and then we'll use that as an exercise. Good. Oh, how wonderful. Excuse me, I had to take a cup of coffee. What happens if you have to change the UDF? What a perfect example to use. What happens if you have to change the UDF? And I'm going to get myself all screwed up and start swearing a lot and show my problems here. But I'm going to let's take the amount of the debt commitment and put this just kind of go all the way forward. You could stop it at COD, I guess, if you want. And then let's put the upfront fee in, and we could get in a little bit of a debate about whether I should show this up here. I put a I think that let's be transparent. So let's put our financial laws flag, and this idea of putting these flags or switches or what masks or whatever we want to call them when we're real fancy in one page, what a ridiculous thing to do. Honestly, just totally ridiculous. Honestly, where did I put it? No, I put it up here somewhere. This was our financial close flag. That we even had a 1 and a 0 for it, and so we just take this one, multiply it by the flag, and multiply it by our percent, and then we've oh God, this Shift Control D on this stupid thing, and then let's put the undrawn commitment as our total commitment minus the opening balance of the debt. Why again? You double your work by putting the thing, and then we'll put our fee rate in, which is our next one. Okay, and then we'll put a F4 on that one, and multiply it by the periods in the year, months in period divided by 12. Did I divide by 12? And then our periodic fee is the opening balance times that one. And what should happen, hopefully, is this one eventually. We better. Yeah, I think. Which one should I multiply? I'll multiply this one by the pre-COD switch. Okay, and then we've got our total here. Let's put our sums here. And, you know, I don't know if you should use the sum somewhere else, but okay. And now we're going to start. And I didn't do this with our with all of these. This one is meaningless, kind of, because this covers the whole period. But this one is really important, and so is that's not, and this one is. now let's keep going. So our I do the PRI and PRG, and PRG is a percent, and PRI we multiply this by the debt. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it a little more transparent, uh, and so we can see exactly how it works. So our PRG rate, I assumed, and this is a whole nother issue, whether it's kind of, these are such high rates. Oh God. Oh well. F4, and but people get very emotional about this, so I got to be a little bit careful. No, I shouldn't be careful. I didn't mean to multiply by that. I meant to multiply by the periods and the months in the periods. Okay, and then let's put the opening debt balance we have. Again, why would you force yourself to do this twice? Oh God, but everybody will. I know. It's disgusting. It really is. Sorry about that. And then so we can get a sum on our PRG, and it's not that hard, really, you know. And I know these people pride themselves on going between the sheets of the permanent debt and the construction debt and all that crap. And then we better to get the equity stuff. We better put get the equity balance. Now this will be different because eventually this would have to be computed post COD. So I just contradicted myself a little bit. So you can point yourself that out and say I'm a inconsistent fool, and that's okay. God, if I don't stop doing this, I'm gonna go crazy. Okay, here's our equity balance, and then I'm gonna say, well, we don't have necessarily all of the PRI, all of the equity funded. I mean funded. So why don't we just take the percent of the equity insured, which this is just equity insured. How's that? And let's take this one. Obviously, I don't do this all that often. Times the opening balance, and then we'll took the we don't need this one, and then let's get the equity PRI. Oh well, yeah. Let's put the PRI rate and a percent, and let's get that one. Shoot. Equity PRI. This one, right? Okay, and then we'll take this one as usual, multiply it by the months by 12. No, divide it by 12 and multiply it by the months in the period. I know. Ooh, you're probably saying, why didn't you do that? Put months in the year and make that a range name. Okay, I just didn't bother. Okay, and let's multiply that by our kind of basis there, and then we'll get the equity PRI. All right, and then now let's get the DSRA account, and let's get start with the total debt service, and the debt service is our repayment, and the reason we need this is the whole reason we needed to put the debt repayment in there. And interest expense. I'm not going to put the withholding tax in right yet, and I clearly should, obviously. And then we'll now this is where it's going to get a little tiny bit tricky, because for now I said that the DSRA months is this one, and I'm going to take this divided by 12 times. stupid. I just take this and divide it by the 6. God. So we have 1 period, and then we put I've done this a lot, but we want to go forward, and we want to sum it. So I put a sum and an offset. I notice a lot of people do this. And then you go up and you take the rows, which are you keep it on the same rows, and you move it forward 1 column. You make it 1 height, but the width is this thing. Okay, and then it gives you the total debt, prospective debt service. So what you do is you go over here. That's our debt service, and then we're looking ahead. This, and that's how much we have to. And notice that occurs right at the end of the COD. So the debt service requirement in this case is just well, it's just the same thing. Okay. Here's the thing that could happen. So, yeah, this is a pain. What could happen is instead of having 6 months, let's say we're really, really worried, we're really being mean, and we make the investor put 18 months into the debt service reserve account. Again, that might not be realistic, but I'm just illustrating. Then the problem is it's okay. It's looking forward. Now it's looking forward and summing all the stuff not for one single period, but for 3 periods. And now, so the amount we need to put in our reserve account, we don't need to start putting this in until right here. So what we could do is put a little flag at month period prior to COD. And we got to make sure. I'm terrified of this, if you want to know. And then let's get this one just as the E date, and go up to the COD date and put a comma and a minus on the number of months in the COD, which is almost always going to be 1, but maybe not. And then we take this one, of course, and let's make it take this one and make it equal to this one, and put times 1, and that's our 1 or a 0, and then we hopefully just multiply this. And so I'm just gonna I'm not gonna fund this early. I'm gonna say we just have to fund this right at COD. So we just take this number times this number, and we get the amount that we have to put in right at the beginning of COD. That's a pain. I agree. Okay, and then oops. So that's kind of bizarre. And then let's take this one. This is getting bad. Plus the operating flag. Okay. And then shoot. I'm gonna be okay. So I'm gonna get a little bit flustered here. Okay, and then after we do that, we see how much is in the opening balance of our account, and we put we put our opening balance with our closing balance. And the big trick for me to God damn it, the big trick for me is to just put the funding that we need here, and take that funding and multiply that funding, and I'm not explaining this very well at all, multiply that one by either the pre-COD flag, or we take this funding that we need and multiply it by the post-COD flag. So that's not that difficult. It's kind of a pain. And then the closing balance is the opening balance plus the amount we funded pre-COD plus post-COD. I'm just leaving the kind of positives and negatives the same so we don't get confusing. And the funding requirement is simply the amount we need minus the amount we already have. It's kind of like that thing with the equity balance. And then when you go across here, so this is okay, don't get worried about the negatives. So this is the amount we have to fund pre-COD. This is the amount we fund post-COD, and it just goes down because it's a level payment. And we take it all the way at the end, take it all the way out, and we put our little sums in here. Okay, and once we this equals, and this amount that we funded pre-COD, that's going to go into our sources and uses of funds. And look at this. This is the end. And now I'm going to go through the real painful stuff. And I just have to see if I'm still recording. And now we're going to put kind of these things all into our summary sources and uses of funds, and then we're going to get our famed circular reference. So here's our pre-COD, and then, we got it. What should I do here? Now, I'm going to go ahead and just finish this. And then the next, this was, and of course I put the wrong one in here, because as soon as I get these dreaded blue lines, I start getting I start getting a little bit of a heart attack. Okay, and I shouldn't, because I know they're supposed to be there. And then we'll get our withholding tax next. So we'll just, and of course, when we go down like this instead of going up, that's when we have the problems. And then we'll put in our upfront fees. Upfront fees. And then we'll put in our commitment fees. Where's the commitment fees? That's upfront fees. And there's our, I should have named that a little better, shouldn't I have? And then we'll put in our PRG. Hopefully, and I did this really badly. I'm going to have to fix it. Let's fix it first. And let's put PRG pre-COD. And then we'll put PRG post-COD. Okay. Okay, and we'll put this one, this multiplied by the pre-COD flag. Okay, and then we'll put where's that? And then we'll maybe I'll just put this post-COD too, right? I'm sorry if there's a little bit of background noise. That's not that bad, is it, really? Okay. Times the PRG. Okay. What a pain. And then we better do the same thing for the PRI, the political risk insurance, where, and of course, I need to also get the sums. And let's put the I call it equity PRI. And now, you know, the interesting thing is really, should this equity PRI, should that be a part of the uses of funds for computing the debt size? It clearly is going to be in the balance sheet. It's clearly going to be accounted for, but maybe we differentiate between what's computed what's in the debt sizing calculation, and you can say, well, this is just an equity return, and you could be right. Okay, or you could kind of argue the other way, and you could be right too, maybe. So our UDF has to account for that. Notice that the whole model isn't working anymore because we have the circular reference on, and I'm not going to even bother showing you the. You can say, why didn't you put the iteration button on? And I'd say, oh God, I can't do that. That's the most dangerous, gefährlich thing yeah, so I say, that's so dangerous. And let's put the operating switch in, and let's press Control D to get our sums. Okay, of course. No, I'm not gonna. Okay, and then okay, so now we'll get the PRG pre-COD, and then we'll get the PRI pro-COD. Now, what's really scaring me is that what I do is I edit these things afterwards. Oh, shit. I think I just messed up. PRG and PRI. I never get these stupid names right anyway. PRG first. Pre-COD. Okay, and then finally, let's get the DSRA, and the DSRA is the one that's just pre-construction. Now, I'm going to make a copy and paste, and you're going to tell me, maybe you're going to even be right. UDF is off, so I'm going to take this line, and we're probably going to have to make a copy and paste for two things. We're probably going to have to make a copy and paste for all of these things. That's what I'm going to be a little lazy about it. We don't really have to do it here. We could start here, but let's just make a whole little range name up here called computed uses. Okay, and then let's make a whole thing down here called pasted uses. And then what we'll do is just let's record a macro. Okay, and take this one, computed uses, and copy it and paste special as values to pasted uses. And then we'll make, and now I'm going to have to go and make my applied different. And before I'll do that, I'm not gonna put this in the video. I'm gonna have to make all of the times I took it from here. I'm gonna really take it from this one instead. So I made a error as usual here, and let's just get this macro finished. So let's go to this workbook, and maybe we should name this copy paste. I'm not even going to put horrible copy paste. I'm just going to put copy paste. And instead of this, I'm going to just, I think it would be better to put a range, and then I can never, this is going to be the pasted equals range, and fixed. And if you put up here dot value, okay, it's going to be better, and you're going to put dot value here. Okay, and then we're going to take away all this other crap that we don't even need anymore, and just go up here and try to remember what our range names is. If you press F3 and paste the list, what you can do is you can just copy this. Look, I made some spelling mistakes, but I'm not even going to care about that because I'm going to put it right here. I'm even gonna, I could even leave it in the macro. I don't know why you'd really do that, but okay. And we put up here range PSTED underscore uses. And instead of this, of course, I made this effort, so why don't I just copy it here? So it's always pasted uses or fixed uses equals computed uses. So we'll put that in here. Okay, and then we'll now let's make a little button and call this our fancy optimization shit or whatever it is. Okay, and I'm sorry I swore there, but I had to because I think it's, compared to the rest of the model, this is the simplistic crap. Okay, and then now what I'm going to do here is make our applied equal our copy paste, but I'm even going to put an if statement. If the circular reference is true, F4, then we'll take and get this from the UDF, otherwise we'll get it from the copy paste. So right now we're getting it from the copy paste, and we can put both methods in, and then I'll sum that. Okay, and now I'm going to switch the macro off, the thing off. And look, I'm over an hour, but I'm going to keep going. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. Okay, so what I did is I put every time I'm sorry, I should go back here. We put the applied equals the copy paste. I think I did that with you. Now, everything now comes from this applied line, which is fixed rather than the computed line. So I redid the little pro rata stuff, and this comes from G. You notice this column comes from G, this column comes from G, this column comes from G, and so on and so forth. So far it looks like this copy paste is really kind of cool. Okay, and we just copied it, and we resolved all the circular references, and then this difference is the applied, because we're going to use the UDF or the copy paste later on. Excuse me, it's this one minus the computed. Excuse me. Okay, and we can take this total difference here. I'll put difference. A uses difference. Maybe I can spell that correctly. And we'll go around and around until this uses difference doesn't equal 0. And there are about 100 ways to do this. One of them is to put do while range. I hope I call it uses difference is not equal to 0. And then after we do that, we put a loop. Okay, and we run the button, and it goes around, and we're so smart. I can't believe how smart we are to do that. We are just brilliant. We need a salary of 100,000 euros a year or something for doing that, right? We're just so good. And we're so good at this, we can do it like in a millisecond. But we're not finished, of course, because I haven't put this stuff down here. So we're going to have another little circular reference. And we're going to go down to the interest during construction. And we're going to go down, sorry about this, to the interest during construction. And put that in. Now that doesn't cause a circular reference, so that's kind of interesting. The fees during construction, will that cause a circular reference? Perhaps none of these will, but I think they will. Just a minute. The fees during the upfront fees. Oh, that didn't either. Shoot. And then the commitment fees. Where are the commitment fees? Okay, and the DSRA, but I'm going to put in the withholding tax and the PRG and the PRI. Okay, and that's the funding pre-COD. And that causes a circular reference. So we got one more circular reference that we can resolve, and then that this DSRA is really kind of the nightmare thing. I'm gonna switch it off and just put in the other ones, the PR. Okay, so I put the other things in, and then what we'll do is basically the same thing and put up here. This is total computed, and we'll put total. This is total funding needs computed. And we can put the total funding needs fixed, copy paste. How about? And then we'll put the total funding needs UDF. Okay, so now let's make this into a ranged name. Let's make this whole long thing into funding needs, and then let's put this. Maybe I'll just put a 1, Shift Control R, and maybe make this funding pasted. And what we're going to have to do is exactly the same thing. Okay, and we really need a difference here too, perhaps. I'll put that here. Which will be the difference between for now this one and this one, and we'll have an applied thing and everything else. But let's just make the copy paste. So we're going to again. I'm going to press the F3 thing again. 1, 2, 3, and paste the list. Oof! I shouldn't have done that. F3. Paste the list. And I just had to check if I switched it on. And this is going to be the and then we better have a sum of the differences here. Okay. And we'll name this range again, and we'll put the computed uses, funding needs, funding pasted, funding needs, and funding pasted. So we're going to copy the funding pasted. That's going to be equal to the funding needs. So we can go to our macro once again and put the let's do it like this first, and then we can put everything together if we'd like, I think. And we'll put crap, I can't remember anything now. And I'm a little more relaxed. Nobody will be watching this, and better yet, it's almost finished. Okay, so this one will be pasted, funding pasted. So we'll copy this and paste this up to the this one. Okay, and then we'll put that equals funding needs. Okay, and then we better put a range name on our sum. Okay, and let's put this here, funding difference. And finally, I'll use Shift Control F3, which I should have been maybe using before. And the other thing I want to show you is that this takes a little bit of time to go through all of this, doesn't it? Funding, and we're doing all this just so we can break them all, just so we can make it so we can't, every time we have any little change, we've got to run through the whole copy paste thing, which, okay, you can do it, you can attach it to buttons, you can do anything you want. But let's see if it works now. If I made a mistake. Okay, I probably did. Shoot. So again, good, I made a mistake. Maybe you wouldn't make a mistake. So, whatever. Okay, I'm going to continue here. We have to go and replace everything with this fixed numbers. Okay, and I must have used it somewhere else. I must have used it up here on the pro rata funding as well. J113 should have been J115. So again, I don't know if I'm happy or sad, or I don't really care. Neither. Who cares? But we should take this one from the fixed numbers. Okay, and then it looks like we've got everything ready to go. So that was a little bit of a pain. And then I made a little button where all I did was put a little exit sub. So I'm just testing this part of it. Okay. And then we solved that part. Let's press Shift Control C. Okay, and then now we've got to put them both together. And this is where things can get a little bit slow and a little bit scary. So why don't we put range, this one, I'm going to put both the differences together, and then we'll put both of the uses together. And we don't kind of need this anymore. There would be about 100 different ways to do this, of course, as well. And then I don't need this one anymore. Okay, and let's make sure this all works. So it didn't take that long, and it doesn't take that long. This is a relatively simple thing. It doesn't have multiple uses. It doesn't have sculpting or anything else. But it does mean that every time you change a variable, you're going to have to run the copy paste every time you change the construction period, every time you change the capital expenditures, every time you change anything. You're going to have to stop them all and run this button and not forget about it. And you can't make a data table, of course. You could make a goal seek with this, but it would have to run through the copy paste every time you made the goal seek. So that's I'm going to stop this video now. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to make a Shift Control Alt C, and we'll make our little coloring thing. Okay, and when we do that now, hopefully it'll show us, everything that's a flag and It'll put all our sums in the columns and do all of that stuff. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show you how you can put the UDF together with this, and how we can demonstrate that the UDF results in the same, has the same result as the copy paste, and how hopefully it's not all that difficult. And even if you have to make a change in the UDF, it's not all that difficult. So that's that one. Oh, I better save this as a macro enabled file. And what I'm going to do is put this on the website, and you can work through this. So I'm going to put both the blank kind of one there and the completed one. Okay, and that's enough of this very long video. An hour and 20 minutes, my God.